Happy Monday, football fans. You have found the Behind the Lines podcast for week number 14 in the NFL. My name is Stephen Andress, managing editor at TheLines.com, joined each and every week on this show by Christian Cipollini, sports trader at BetMGM. In this episode, we'll look back at the week that was betting in week 13 in the NFL, the biggest public wins, the biggest public losses. We'll get you ready for Monday Night Football, let you know where the bets are right now at BetMGM. We'll also look ahead to the week 14 opening odds over at BetMGM with yet another big slate of games, some divisional matchups that are going to have some big say on what the playoff picture is going to be in the next few weeks here. So first of all, Christian, welcome aboard again. Happy to have you, sir.
Thanks again for having me.
Of course. So how was week 13 in the NFL? Was it finally a second winning week for the public, or did you guys get another one?
No, the book got another one, although kind of similar story to last week. It was a good week that ended up just being an okay week. Sunday Night Football that really kicked us around.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the Cowboys were one of your biggest public wins, but let us know what were some of the biggest ones overall for you guys.
Yeah, so that was the biggest public win.
Biggest. Yeah, I misspoke, but yeah, obviously big favorite, public favorite. So yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke there for a second, but biggest public wins for this week.
Yeah, so that Cowboys-Colts Sunday night game was the biggest one that we had, biggest loser that we had at the weekend. It was actually looking okay for a bit there, but then the Cowboys poured it on and scored all those points at the end. So that knocked us around a few different ways. For one, we're super lopsided on the Cowboys action in the first place, so they cover, and then all these different touchdown scores hit. CeeDee Lamb scoring the first touchdown was one of our worst outcomes that we could have had. So it was pretty much all in all as about as bad as a Sunday night as we could have gotten. But for the main slate of games, we did have a couple other public wins, one being the Vikings-Jets game, along with the Lions and Jaguars as well.
Don't get me started on the Vikings, Christian. It's Monday morning, man. Like I went like 10 rounds with Matt Brown on this on the Megapod and over the weekend, and then the game plays out like that with a ridiculously lopsided yards per play and 1 for 6 in the red zone for the Jets. Like, I'm going to need another cup of coffee before we get into this again with the Minnesota Vikings, but I am not shocked at all that was a public side, to say the least. So I guess the -3 was attractive to everybody with the record that the Vikings have overall here, and they just completely ignored the advanced metrics on Minnesota.
Yeah, and unfortunately it worked out for him there, because that was definitely one of the better public wins. Another heartbreaker, though, that we had, a public win, was the Commanders-Giants game. But if you had that over, that was tough. That over closed at 40.5 and ended up finishing on a flat 40 with no points in overtime. So tough one there.
Well, if you were reading our lead writer, Eli Hershkovich, that was only one of 2 bets he had on the week, was the under 40.5. And our Discord was jumping up and down and running around in circles saying like, oh my God, I can't believe this under hit was 0 points at overtime. But here, hey, there's always a chance, right? It's only 10 minutes. It's only, 2.5, 3.5 possessions in that period. And it's a lot harder to score here if you don't score on the first possession in overtime.
Yeah, for sure.
How about the flip side here? How about some of the biggest public losses in week 13?
Yeah, the Chiefs-Bengals game was I'd have to go back and look, but maybe our biggest winner of a non-standalone game that we've had this season. That one was a massive one for us. We were pretty lopsided on the Chiefs there. And another winner that we had was Dolphins 49ers. That was one of our winners, and Broncos Ravens was another good one for the book.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, with the Mahomes, Andy Reid era, it doesn't seem to matter whether you put them home or away. If you're going to give us a number under a field goal, that's going to be attractive to not only the sharps, but the public as well. Although I think there was a lot of early sharp money on the Bengals moving that off of 3.
Yeah.
But for the public in particular, I mean, it's hard to ignore the Chiefs under 3 there. And obviously a Travis Kelce fumble, the difference in that game. And the Bengals are moving up our power rankings this week at TheLines.com. We always do them each week for only that week. In that context, we don't look at futures. It's just if we were going to try and put 2 teams on a neutral field for this week, who would we have favored? And I think we have now moved the Bengals up to either 4th or 5th, depending on who you ask on our staff. So all they do is continue to win here. It looks like the division race is not out of the picture for them after the Ravens were like minus 500 to win the AFC North a couple weeks ago, and now Lamar Jackson is hurt. So everything on the table for the Bengals moving forward at this point after they got to the Super Bowl a year ago, and it seems that offensive line is now gelling. So I assume the Bengals are pretty high in your guys' power rankings at this point too.
Yeah, for sure. They're right up there to win the AFC. They're our 3rd favorite, so definitely have jumped up in the rankings.
Bills now the favorite again, now that they have control of the 1 seed.
Yeah, Bills still hang on as the favorite in the AFC, just slightly over the Chiefs, and then after that, Bengals come up next, and then Dolphins, Ravens, kind of similar after that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in that market with winning the conference, whoever has the 1 seed has a big advantage there, not having to play the extra playoff game. And now the Bills have retaken control of that after the Chiefs lost. So it was the Chiefs who were the favorite last week after the Bills had lost a couple of games. But that's going to flip-flop depending on who the favorite is to get the 1 seed moving forward. So interesting market movement there, and certainly notable that you now guys have the Bengals as the 3rd choice. Okay, before we get into week 14 opening odds at BetMGM, let's take a look at Monday Night Football. Let us know where kind of the money is here, where the spread is, where the total is heading into the final game of week 13.
Yeah, so this one won't hurt us too much either way. We're lopsided still a bit on the Buccaneers, about 65% of our money, but it shouldn't kill us too much either way. I don't imagine this being one of our higher handle Monday Night Football games of the season, but it's still getting okay action.
For sure. Spread still at 3.5 there, I believe. It hasn't really moved all week, has it?
We're at 3 actually for the Bucks.
You are okay. So some Saints money has come in on the Saints there with the hook. So down to 3 now. If I had to look into my crystal ball here, I imagine this is another one of those classic Saints Bucks low scoring games, and you guys are going to be pretty happy from an anytime touchdown market situation. But hey, we'll see how it plays out here on Monday Night Football. Okay, week 14 opening odds. Sorry, Christian, what was that?
No problem. I just said, that's what we're rooting for. A nice low scoring, keep it close game.
Well, if you got 2 teams to do it, it seems these 2 teams know each other very well from a game planning standpoint on the offensive side. So we'll see how it plays out and see if Brady and the Bucks do actually have some momentum here, if the offense stalls again. Week 14 opening odds at BetMGM. Another big slate of games here. Thursday night, a ton of 1 o'clock games. The 4 o'clock window is down to 3 games for NFL Red Zone, but we'll start with the Thursday night game. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Rams. The Raiders getting hot here a little bit. Offense looks good. Ever since Derek Carr had a nice cry on the post-game press conference, they've won 3 in a row. They're outgaining teams significantly in yards per play, and I'm not surprised by the line you have here, Christian.
Yeah, I was going to say the line definitely reflects that, as the Raiders are 6-point favorites on the road here with a 44.5-point total.
And I assume one of the more fun things I've been doing all season is kind of looking at the Rams opening odds from way back in the summer to what they are now. And there's some massive moves. I think the difference between the summer line when they played the Seahawks last week to what they were going into that was like a 16, 17 point move. And this is another massive move as well here. You guys have moved the Rams basically to the bottom of the barrel at this point, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Stafford out, and the way they played, they are deserving to be at that bottom of the standings here. But yeah, I'd imagine this was probably three or points or so for the Rams preseason, and now
I
all the
just
way to
found it.
6
Rams
away.
-4. So
Yeah,
10-point move here
yeah,
from the
it's crazy.
summer opener.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't see that
absolutely
very
crazy.
often, do you?
No, you don't. I mean, Rams are setting all kinds of records for team that wins the Super Bowl and then has a just abysmal next season. So
For sure. Okay, so let us move forward here to the 1:00 openers over at BetMGM. What are we looking at?
Jets at Bills. Bills are 9.5-point favorites. Total is 44. Browns at Bengals. Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. That totals 48.5. Texans at Cowboys, our biggest spread of the week. Cowboys are 17-point favorites at home, and that totals 45. Vikings at the Lions. Vikings are 1-point favorites on the road. It's actually closer to a pick'em now. We're moving to a pick'em, and that totals 53. Jags Titans. Titans are 3.5-point favorites at home. That totals 41.5. Eagles at the Giants. Eagles are 6.5-point favorites on the road with a 45.5-point total. Last of the 1:00s, Ravens at Steelers. Steelers are 2.5-point favorites here with some QB uncertainty, and that total is the lowest of the week, 37.5.
All right, so a couple of notes here on these games. I did bet the look ahead on the New York Jets at +9.5, but I would be lying if I said I was comfortable with the spot with the Bills here. The Bills had some wacky schedule stuff going on here. They have the blizzard. They go to Detroit to play back-to-back games on the road. Then they come back, play another Thursday game against the New England Patriots. Now they get 10 days, kind of get to reset, have a home game against what was a preseason third-string quarterback, although Mike White is, at least I think, in my opinion, look league average. I don't like the spot here for the Jets going on the road again for another week after a heartbreaker in Minnesota, but it just seems 9.5 is a lot here. So admittedly, I'm not as comfortable with it as I was last week because I'm not a big spot consideration type of handicapper. But this is setting up pretty nice for the Bills. I don't know if they win by double digits, and Josh Allen has been among the league leaders in turnovers and turnover-worthy plays. It has not been as crisp as it's been in past years, but hey, I'm a big believer in this Jets defense. I think Mike White at least makes this offense league average. They have great weapons on the outside in Garrett Wilson. If they can get Elijah Moore going maybe here. So I'll take the points here, 9.5, and see what happens. The other notable game here, Christian, I think, is the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. And listen, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm not going to give any more opinions. Everybody knows how I feel about the Minnesota Vikings, even though they still keep having the coin flip go their way in these fourth quarters. This line was 3 on the look ahead, and you're at 1 now, correct?
A pick 'em basically.
Pick 'em. That says a lot about what the market thinks of the Minnesota Vikings and what you guys think of the Minnesota Vikings, does it not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think maybe if you think back to that Steelers team from I think 2020 where they were 11-1 or something like that, but I mean, I can't think of many other times where a team with 2 losses this deep into the season is a pick 'em against a team, a few games under 500. It definitely says a lot about how they're perceived throughout the league. I think they're definitely perceived as probably the worst 10-2 team out there.
For sure. And listen, our lead writer, Eli Hershkovich, if you were in our Discord, you saw that he bet the Lions yesterday on Sunday at +2 over at BetMGM. And can't say I blame him, to be honest with you. I might be joining him later in the week here, but it seems like I better hop on it sooner. I'm going to get the worst of the number on the Lions. The Lions have won 4 of 5. They held the Packers to 9 points. That was probably a fluky win, to be honest with you. But they scored 31 on Chicago. They dismantle the New York Giants on the road 31-18. They dismantle the Jacksonville Jaguars 40-14, and they almost upset the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving. They only lose that game on a late field goal by 3 points. So the Lions are, in my power rankings this week, an above average team. Now, you might think I'm crazy if you look at their record, they're 5-7. How can you make them an above average team? Well, we do them week to week. We're not doing for the full season. We're not looking at Super Bowl futures. We're only looking for this week. And if this line is a pick 'em, then they are not very far behind the Minnesota Vikings. So that by definition to me has to put them around league average at worst at this point in the Detroit Lions. So that's really interesting to me. The other 1:00 game here that I bet on the look ahead was the Jacksonville Jaguars. I got it at +4. It's at 3.5 now. The Titans are starting to show the red flags that we all thought might pop up here. Now, back-to-back games against the Bengals and the Eagles, and they've had struggled offensively to move the ball. That might not be the case here against Jacksonville and their defense, but I think 3.5 here. I think anything more than 3 is too much here for Jacksonville. So happy to see the market moving my way on this one after I bet it at 4 on the look-ahead line. Also bet the Eagles 5.5 on the look-ahead line. This is now 6.5. I just think the Giants don't have the manpower to compete with the Eagles at this point. I think this is a complete talent mismatch between these two teams here. Don't care that the Giants are the home team in this one. Okay, Christian, let's look ahead to the late window games here. We have 3 of them for Week 14.
Chiefs at Broncos. Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites on the road. Totals 42.5. Bucks at the 49ers. 49ers are 3-point favorites. 37.5-point total. Last of the 4:00. Panthers at Seahawks. Seahawks are 4.5-point favorites at home with a 43-point total.
What are you guys doing with the Broncos at this point? Because like it's literally opposite ends of the spectrum with their offense and their defense, right? They're really good on defense. They're really like near Texans bad on defense. I mean, I'm sorry, on offense. Especially with the red zone stuff. So, I mean, is this a bottom 5 team with the way you guys are lining them? Or how do you guys deal with a situation? Because I feel like most of our power ratings and rankings at this point in the NFL are so offensively slanted with the way the rules are in the league and et cetera. But this team couldn't be more of the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch. What I'll tell you is going to happen this week is we're just only going to take Chiefs money all week because that's what's been happening over the last few weeks is no one wants to bet on this offense, and I'm sure we'll take a lot of under bets too, although maybe the Chiefs kind of scare people off of that number a bit. But yeah, I mean, the offense just goes nowhere. I think they would be like a few games over 500 if they scored 16 points in every game, something like that. It's just crazy that every week they give up no points and they score even less. They're definitely, as we have them rated, as a bottom 5 team currently.
Before we wrap up with the primetime games, I have to ask you about the San Francisco 49ers. First of all, remind me again what you have this line at against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously before the Bucs play on Monday night. So that's the caveat. And then I have a follow-up question for you.
Right now they're at 49ers -3 at home.
Okay. So that's got to be at least a few point down. I think this was 6.5 on the look ahead before the Jimmy G injury. Is that fair?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think I'm almost positive that's what it was. So around a 3.5 point move for losing Jimmy G, who obviously I think most people think is a league average quarterback, right? Not elite, but not terrible. A good fit for the offense. So where are the 49ers now in your NFC futures picture after we had a discussion last week about them being probably the top power rated team in the NFC, and the only reason you didn't have them as the favorite in futures is because of that 1 seed playoff bye situation for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah. So last week and the past couple weeks, the Eagles and the 49ers have been kind of neck and neck with a slight edge to the Eagles there. But now with that injury, they've dropped. So now the Eagles are +185. The 49ers have dropped to the 3rd favorite at +450, with the Cowboys now at +300. The silver lining, I guess, for the 49ers, in the outright, they were +700 now to +1100. I'd say, the way that we have them rated is it's a great team, offense, defense, coaching, kind of everything. And the one missing piece is kind of quarterback. So maybe this, Brock Purdy can can help bring them back here. But it's
maybe
not
he's Tom Brady, but it's probably not likely. It's probably not likely, right?
No, but it's not as significant of a drop off if another team were to have lost their quarterback, because there was plenty of question marks around Jimmy G in the first place. Although he's much more of a solid, won't lose you game, but maybe won't win you the game. As that's now gone, but as compared to another team, if the Eagles had lost Jalen Hurts, that's going to have a much bigger impact than the 49ers would have had here.
I'm going to have to do some digging on this, because I am a believer that it's more the scheme and the system than it is Jimmy Garoppolo. But you also have to know how to execute it. You don't need to have the arm talent. You don't need to have a Josh Allen arm to execute it. But you also need to know what to do and be able to improvise here and there. That's where it becomes an issue with Brock Purdy. And if this line moves off the 3 and we get some Bucks money and moves to 2.5, maybe they look good on Monday night. I'm going to be tempted to back the Niners here, because I think this defense is the best in the league. I mean, they are just wrecking teams that have offensive line issues, and the Bucks still have offensive line issues, even though Brady's getting rid of the ball. So with that being said, I know, because I've researched it, that despite everybody claiming that it's the system and not Jimmy Garoppolo, we have a pretty decent sample size in the Kyle Shanahan era of what this quarterback has done when it hasn't been Jimmy Garoppolo, and it hasn't been pretty. So, the CJ Beathard's and the Nick Mullins of the world, it didn't go well when those guys were a quarterback. It didn't really go well when Trey Lance was a quarterback. So this is a difficult spot for me to try to assign proper value to Jimmy Garoppolo, but the rest of the team is just elite. So it's going to be one of the best discussions we have on the Megapod this week. We invite everybody to tune in on Friday and hear it. It's going to be awesome to figure out what to do with the 49ers now on a weekly standpoint and also a future standpoint as well. All right, Christian, as we wrap up here, Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I think just back to that real quick. I think this week will be a big measuring stick point for them too, as to how they handle this Bucs defense with Purdy as a quarterback. I think there'll be a much bigger fluctuation depending on what goes on from next week, as opposed to now where we sit this week.
That's interesting. That's interesting, Christian, because you make a great point there, and I think you see it in our staff power rankings as we just kind of put these together Monday morning here, and all of our staff haven't weighed in on that opinion. But for the most part, we all still have the 49ers as, like, I think the number 6 team basically across the board right now. One of us even has a number 5. So we haven't really downgraded the Niners much at all. We had them at 4, but basically still in this top tier of just outside the Chiefs and the Bills. And in that same group with the Eagles, Cowboys, and Bengals. None of us really wanted to put them behind the Dolphins after what they just did to the Dolphins, and the Ravens lost their quarterback. And most of us think the Vikings are fraudulent. Right now, I think a lot of us are still believing in the 49ers, at least in that context. But if they don't look good against the Bucs, I agree with you. They're going to drop pretty significantly here.
Yeah.
All right, prime time.
Dolphins at Chargers. Dolphins are 3-point favorites on the road here. Total's 52.5. And Monday night, Patriots at Cardinals. Patriots are 1.5-point favorites with a 43-point total.
I think maybe a decent bounce back spot here for the Miami Dolphins. They got wrecked by an elite defensive line. They were missing both of their tackles. If they get both their tackles back here, I might be interested in backing Miami here. Although the Chargers will be playing for their season, this is a major playoff picture situation here with the Dolphins and the Chargers battling for a playoff spot. And I don't even know where to begin with these two offenses for Arizona and New England, with all the coaching hatred going on there with their quarterbacks. So we'll save that for the Megapod. Beat the Closing Line will be back on Tuesday with Nicole, Eli, and Mo. Stay tuned for that. The Megapod, as always, on Fridays. We're going to be having videos every day of the college bowl season, breaking down all of those. my favorite part of the bowl season, all these crazy sponsors that they have. I think there's like a Tony the Tiger Bowl this year, so that should be fun. But as always, Christian, appreciate the insight. Thank you for hopping on. Fantastic insight in particular on the 49ers. That's going to be really fascinating to see how this plays out with a 7th round rookie now in this offense. And but thanks for watching, everybody. Best of luck with your bets in week number 14. This has been Behind the Closing Lines. For Christian Cipollini, I'm Stephen Andress. We'll see you next time.